In a world overflowing with distractions, we seek meaning. How do we transform ambition into something deeper, into true fulfillment? I'm Sam Pepin, CEO of Course Educa, and I've spent years helping businesses succeed by connecting their goals to something bigger. On the Meaningful podcast, we explore not just how to win in business, but how to grow as individuals. Through conversation with thought leaders, innovators, and everyday heroes, we uncover the stories that drive us towards something greater. Whether you're striving for success, seeking purpose, or just looking for the next steps in your journey, this podcast is your guide to navigating the intersection of ambition, growth, and meaning. So please join me and our incredible guests as we redefine what's possible in both business and life. Enjoy.
Branding isn't just what you sell, it's about who you are, how you live, and what you stand for. Welcome to the Meaningful Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Pepin. Today we're diving into authentic branding in the digital age, the harmony between creativity and discipline, and how reconnecting with nature can fuel personal and professional success. Our guest today is Emanuel Rose, founder and CEO of strategic eMarketing. With over 3 decades of experience in cutting-edge marketing, Emanuel has built a reputation for helping companies grow from the ground up through clarity, creativity, and authentic communication. Beyond his success as a marketing strategist, he's also an outdoorsman and author whose passion for the wilderness informs his work, reminding us that creativity thrives when we reconnect with the natural world. If you enjoyed this discussion, please hit the wall now with a like, a small review, or even a quick share. Your support helps more people find meaningful content just like this. Mr. Emanuel Rose, welcome on the Meaningful Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Sam. Thanks so much for having me.
It's lovely having you here. You just had me on your show, which was a lovely timing. Now you're online, and I think this conversation is going to be a very insightful one. To kick us off, please tell us more about strategic eMarketing, please.
Yeah, we're about a 16-year-old digital marketing agency, and we're helping clients with all aspects of marketing and AI integrations into their marketing department and the rest of their business.
Very nice. Tell me this fascination of growing businesses. When did it came up for you within your endeavor? Was it something you always loved, or how did you get that passion?
I was one of those kids that sold seeds door to door when I was like 5 years old, and I wanted to buy a boomerang, and so I sold the seeds, took the orders, and then the seed company sent the seeds, and I went and got the money and sent them their part, and I kept my part and ordered a boomerang. So that was the first. I was like 5 or 6. It was just a young kid.
Wow.
So yeah, and then over the years, I did tutoring as a job, and I was a soccer referee, and those sorts of things. Going through high school, I washed dishes, and I dug around for a pest control company underneath houses so they could do their inspections. And through all that, I was like, I want to do something with my brain. I want to go to college. I want to use my brain rather than my body. So I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity.
Quite lovely. Talking about seed, you use nature as a branding compass. We were just touching upon it since you're obviously in Red Rock in California right now. Perhaps the way you describe it, I think, is very interesting, and I want to sort of dive deeper into it. It's for you, it offers more than obviously personal pleasures. It's sort of a worldview. This sort of deep attachment to nature, right? So I think that's Albert Einstein was talking about it as look deep into nature and you will understand everything better, right? It's the source, perhaps. Now, within that, it's very interesting how that collides with a world driven now by data and metrics, and obviously all you do in AI. There's sort of a paradox, but a parallel perhaps that you can trace within the both of these worlds. And your approach to branding and again, like nature, I suppose, thrives when rooted in genuine connections and long-term sustainability, which we're going to talk a lot about today. I'm really interested, how has your time in the wild, perhaps being this outdoors man, perhaps shaped how you approach human connections and storytelling in brand development altogether?
Yeah, well, that's a giant question, Sam. Thanks for opening that up. Um, so the I did the research for my book about marketing at Gen Z, and and as we know, there's that generation is the first truly digital generation, and because of that, there's lots of negative psychological effects that computer time, screens, dopamine, social media, cyberbullying, all these things. Uh, the amount of time on technology has created some tough challenges. And as I dug into that, um, I found, I already know the antidote to this. The antidote is time in nature by yourself, completely unplugged. And so that really uh, uh, allowed me to feel confident to bring that message forward, which was to combine these two things, which is the beauty and simplicity of the AI as a tool, as an innovation that allows us to get time back if we so choose to go and spend more time being human outside, away from the technology, to learn to be creative, to play the guitar, to paint, to write poetry, to
Mm.
fill ourselves out as Renaissance people rather than just as worker bees. And so I grew up in a working class family, and that's how we spent our time, was outside hunting and fishing and camping. And through the years, I've walked, I've done 150-mile backpacking trips. I've hunted and fished all over the world. I've spent 10 days by myself in survival situations purposefully. And the nature time, it shows us efficacy, resiliency, problem solving, and it creates a space to observe the unseen things, not just in ourselves, but in the world. And I do use it as a way of, my time by myself is regenerative, and it is a critical part of my ability to do things in culture and in the business world, because it is so regenerative for me.
You mentioned being closer to the Renaissance time. That is quite interesting because one of my fascination is what they call the seven liberal arts of a free man. So there's a
Yep.
critium and a trivium, and I have both at home, and they touch out on astronomy, on grammar, on logics, and it's really sensational for us because one thing that I sort of got into thinking is when I was reading these books is just how little we teach our people these extraordinary important skill sets and extraordinarily important, I suppose, module of body of knowledge. Um, do you think they called it the seven liberal art at that time? Do you think now we can call those the lost art to a certain extent? Do we think that we're perhaps not only not in touch with it, but a little bit disregard the importance of such thing nowadays?
Well, I think, like with all things, there's a marketplace drift, right? And if you look back at the Renaissance and coming out of the Dark Ages, there was a caste system in education of who could read
Yeah.
and write, right?
Yes.
And so that was the kind of the holy grail, was being able to read, write, speak foreign languages, and be educated in these liberal sciences or liberal arts. Now we have access to information, any piece of information, anything that I am interested in, I can ask Grok about, and it can give me an overview, and I can say, well, do I want to go down this rabbit hole? Is this something I want to learn about? For instance, I'm learning to play the guitar. I've been taking guitar lessons every week for the last year. Uh, I learned how to do bar chords and how to play bar chords. Do I want to learn how to be a solo guitar player for a rock and roll band, or do I want to learn flamenco guitar? Those options are both open to me now, and without any limit, right? I could go to YouTube and do it for free, or I can pay an instructor to show me how. So I think the challenge that we have is allowing these interests to become passions, and then going down those rabbit holes, because we have access to more information and more training than the men 200 years ago could ever have dreamt of.
And that's certainly a fact. There's certainly no doubts about any of this. Emanuel, you talk a lot about this concept of branding from the bottom up, right? Branding from the insides out, perhaps. And it's very interesting, and I see this two school of thoughts, right? Top down and bottom up, and there's interesting people on both sides. I call it your side, basically the grassroots side, basically bottom up, starting from the grassroots, right? And it's sort of a powerful way to challenge companies to walk their talk, I suppose, and
Yep.
align brand promises with internal and operations, which I think is going to be one of the most important things moving forward, by the way. This concept that we had disjointed departments, nowadays with technology and AI will be able to help us significantly in this. I don't believe in that whatsoever. I think that all departments will play a much more cohesive roles without this sort of feeling that, all right, let's just stick to marketing for a second. Well, the sales are complaining that the marketing basically was not targeting enough. So they're complaining about the leads, and the marketing are telling, no, the sales team just suck at closing and so on. I think that
Right.
we'll need much more coherence, perhaps, and congruence also within organization to be able to really thrive. That's the way I see it. But from your perspective, what does it truly mean to build a brand from the insides out? And why do you think so many companies do it wrong? And perhaps what can they do better to get to this topic?
Yeah, I think it's a great question and a great piece to pick apart. So many times, small and mid-sized businesses try to emulate Fortune 500 businesses, right? And we simply don't have the brute force that a Fortune 500 company has. And so, to me, the marginal utility of a small firm, a small company, a mid-sized company is the people, and most typically it's from the CEO, the founder, those people, and they created the business, or they joined the business for a very specific reason, because they believe in the mission, and they like to build the values of the company and be around the people and the team. And we do business with people we know, like, and trust. We know that, and especially now that marketing can be created in 10 minutes, the more that we can bring out the humanity and the human part of the business for people to observe, both as a prospect and as a customer, then that's the value that is the marginal utility for smaller companies.
Interesting. Concretely, tell me more about what it is to market bottom hub. Basically, what does that look like tangibly? Can you cite an example from a client or a recent perhaps endeavor?
Well, it is creating a situation where the CEO is the primary influencer. That's the first thing, right? Well, we
Okay.
want that person to emulate the actions of Elon and Richard Branson and Kylie Jenner, so that that person's telling the stories, and they're telling the stories of the employee of the month, their favorite client, the product development processes that worked and didn't work, and this idea of transparency and authenticity. But they're doing it because it's the story,
Yes.
and people can attach to that story, right? If the CEO is able to do that, or the manager or the executive director is able to do that, then it makes the marketing department very happy, because they have approved content to start with and spin, and B, it draws in it draws people into the stories, and it doesn't have to all be success. It can be the failures too. We all love to hear the hero's journey is still a critical part of the human psychology.
I think you're right. I definitely think you're right. So you're a big fan of what we call nowadays founder-led basically growth, founder-led marketing plans,
It's
where the founders, the people on top perhaps at hierarchy are the one perhaps pushing forward the values, the stories, the content. That's interesting. Okay. And would you think that with the emergence of AI, and I suppose the hybrid marketing models of human paired with technology, do you think that will be continuously more important, or how do you think that would affect, I suppose, this concept of bottom up?
Yeah, I think it's more and more critical, because you and I could spin up a new product. Let's say we're gonna make shorts for frogs. You and I
Okay.
could spin that up in the next 2 hours, complete with ads running on pay per click, and start selling those things, right? uh, without without any kind of a brand behind it, without any kind of a company behind it, and that is happening constantly. Where
Oh yeah.
And so I want to do business with people that I know. I know you want to do business with people you know, and most people want that connection in the transactions that they're doing, and particularly Gen Z, 68 million people coming online in the U.S. who require that. Right? They've grown up with Kylie Jenner and those types of founder-led marketing campaigns that are providing authenticity and clarity in every transaction.
You're right. No, absolutely. The sort of influencer model, I think, is one that we see emerge. Well, obviously, it's been a while, but I suppose doubling down on at all level, basically, of marketing, which is very interesting. You have 3 decades of marketing under your belt, which is obviously very lovely, and you involve alongside pretty much every major shift that we've seen in the digital world. Because let's be honest, the digital world as we know it, digital marketing as we know it, is an endeavor that is at maximum basically about 18 years old, maybe even less than that. I was born when it started. Let's just put it this way. And so it's a so it's something else. I don't recall who said this, but in theory, perhaps the practice in theory, the theory and the practice is the same, but in practice, it isn't.
Right. Yeah.
That's always how I saw it. And so from analog to algorithmic to, I suppose, is your curiosity, suppose, still remains not only sharp, but you constantly involve in saying, you know what, look, here's the next thing. AI is the next thing. Let me learn about this. So you have a very sharp mind in that matters, which I actually really admire. And those are people that I surround myself with. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, what's been the most significant mindset shift you had to embrace as the marketing world around you change? What's been that one thing perhaps that stick while everything else seems to be constantly evolving?
I think ironically, it's the fundamentals that you have to stay focused on the fundamentals, right? Because we have all these shiny new things, and marketing always absorbs this new technology first. And, I was having this conversation earlier today where people think that because they have access to the tools, Canva or ChatGPT, that they are a marketer or they don't need a marketing expert. But let's just go problem, solution, call to action, right? If you don't have that fundamental structure or headline, subhead, description, call to action, then you're not going to have success in marketing. And you could have all the fancy HubSpot suites and custom GPTs you want, but until you embrace that we're selling to one human being, that human being has some problems that they're looking to solve. They want to solve it as quickly and expeditiously and within budget as possible. Unless you're embracing these things about the humans, you can have all the fancy technology you want. You're not going to be successful.
Bertrand Russell was talking about the fact that the measure of intelligence is the ability to change, perhaps the ability to involve. And to me, we see this pretty much in all spaces. But I can really say this because I'm a man that study history heavily and I study other topics. But the world of marketing is, in my opinion, by far the most chaotic one in pretty much anything. All right. The pace in which it changed, it's even hard to fathom when you're not in the marketing space. And I agree with you. And the reason why I bounce on the point you made is because I've been having this conversation with a few people these days. They tell me things along these lines. Well, Sam, I already have ChatGPT giving me a marketing plans. Why do I need somebody basically to help me within that?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, but do you understand positioning? No, not really. Okay. Do you understand basically what content you should distribute, where, how many time basically you should do so, how you will recapture your audience? Do you need to go paid? Do you need to go organic? Do you need to earn? Don't understand any of that either. Okay. So the marketing is a very deep space. And I think that, and I want you to definitely touch on this. Perhaps I believe also that this sort of juvenile feeling that we typically see with a lot of younger folks, and I'm not talking about myself, but there's a lot of other young folks perhaps that come within this marketplace and tells you, whoa, here's what you can do to get 14 leads in 12 minutes and blah blah blah. I think I think it makes the marketing space very suffer from authenticity, from credibility, from authority perhaps. From your perspective, and I want, as you have a marketing agency yourself, when a company, perhaps, let's just take the B2B world since it's closer to you. Let's say that a B2B company is looking to really get on board a credible marketing partner. What are the first few things they should look at to make sure they're differentiating themselves from the sea of so-called gurus to actually people that know what the hell they're doing? Tell us a few things that could be great to make a difference.
Sure. I think the first thing is highly valued accomplishments, right? Because I can claim anything, but if I can't provide for you a couple of clutch reviews from actual clients that are citing KPIs, then there's not much value there. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to really like the people that you're going to be working with.
Oh yeah.
Because it's, as you said, marketing is very complicated. And I think that's the change that's happened over my career, is that it was much simpler, 30 years ago.
Direct mail, and that's it.
Yeah, it was ad spend on newspaper and radio, and then direct mail and maybe a catalog, right? And you could build you bought your mail list from Edith Roman. From the magazines that you
few flyers going door to door. Yeah, exactly.
So it was much simpler. Of course, attribution has always been a challenge, but so it's complicated, and it's going to be, you have to like them, then you have to trust them in order to do the work. And then I think the other thing that people make a lot of mistakes with is they always want somebody who's an expert in their industry. And I don't think that is helpful. I think having an outside agency that is only worked with one or two clients in that industry, but bringing in best practices from other industries is highly valuable as well.
You're right. That's another great point. Absolutely. I think there's I just had this amazing podcast, by the way, with a wonderful gentleman. It's obviously not live yet, but it was shoot last Sunday. And he told me a great quote, which I'm actually now looking more into the author because it was that good. He said, Sam, specialization is for insects. All right. Human beings, specifically with technology now, you'll see the emergence of more and more polymathy, which I'm very glad because I'm already one. I've always been one, but it's I think I want your thoughts on this. But when you're thinking about, again, this shift towards just the drastically lower barrier to entry, which again causes good and negative things like all things. But
sure.
I do believe that one of the many things we're going to see as a shift in actually most industry, but certainly in an industry touching biz dev like marketing, is we're going to see basically a resurgence to this concept of a bit more hands-on, a bit more perhaps fuller perhaps from a service perspective, instead of, like you said, we do SEO for law firm. I'm not saying this is not valuable, quite the opposite. I think there's this place within this marketplace, but I do believe that these sorts of the doubts perhaps that are industry specifics really needs to be alleviated, because at the bottom of everything, and you were talking about focusing on the fundamentals, marketing is marketing. Obviously, there's different rules, there are different jurisdiction and so on, and local rules as well, if you're talking about law firms, for example. But there's still key concept that can attach to any single campaigns, and that's something to keep in mind when you're in the buying space of such things. So that's a great reminder. Thank you, Emanuel. I want to talk to you about the art of modern adaptations. And it's thing that you talk about a lot, and we touch on it a little bit, but I wanted to specifically talk about the fact that you really discuss this concept of B2B lead generation with soul. And the soul part is where I think I want to focus on, because obviously as a B2B specialist, your brand feels anything but cold and corporate, which I think is sort of what you were discussing. I think a lot of Fortune 500 basically company take this sort of bulldog approach of just because they have the budget, they have basically the notoriety to do so, to just really go, I suppose, full pace into something that we might have the means perhaps to do. And one thing you talk about is really injecting humanity into what's often called a numbers game, which I suppose it's a double-edged sword. It certainly sort of is, but definitely not as much as some salespeople try to sell you as. And perhaps a result of your deeply rooted value in relationships is this blind of strategy and soul, perhaps that might be maybe the future of what I consider authentic B2B growth. I'm really wondering for you, in B2B marketing, where obviously, as we both know, conversion is king. I can promise you millions of views, can promise you many things. If nobody's basically coming through the door, how valuable is that is definitely debatable. How do you ensure there's still a human soul in the process? How do we keep in touch with the source, perhaps?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And we have to stay conscious of what our role is for being incarnated, right? We were born into this, not just to be a consumer unit and a business unit. We all have our family history, and we all have our desires and the things we want to accomplish in our life. And so that's from my space. And then I have to recognize that the person sitting across from me is in a similar position. They got a family, and they got a vacation coming up, and they're working on a book, and they want to go home early and watch the hockey game, right? So it's staying present, it's staying conscious of that situation. And for instance, podcast, right? You could say, "Oh, I want to be the next Joe Rogan." Well, not happening. It's a unicorn. Him and 6 other people are at the top of the heap. But you can say, "I want to have a podcast about my industry, and I want to invite the CEOs who are of my prospects companies."
Yeah.
And then I can build a one-to-one relationship through narrow podcasting with the people who are in my industry and who are my prospective clients. Now you've taken something that's a fantasy of having a podcast that's as big as Joe Rogan, and you've turned it into a personal connection with somebody who could be important in your company. So it is about dialing it back and getting out of your little ego, and about what you need to accomplish in order to make your quarterly goals, and staying focused on the humans that we want to talk to. And then we can structure things inside of a podcast conversation, or inside of a very highly specialized piece of content, and make sure that we're following good marketing, and the funnel is there, and all those things that are the structure of marketing. But it starts with the pre-interview research, and finding out where they went to college, and what they've written papers about, and the positions on things, and being interested.
Be interested. Yes. I think to cite one of my mentor, be interested to be interesting.
Right.
Too many people put it the other way, and supposedly try to be the interesting perhaps before being the interested. And this cause, and we see this all over obviously social media. That's what most social media is actually. And there is this I suppose, what I really see in the marketplace, Emmanuel, is companies, is people in general actually seeking greater meaning, is seeking, and this is the other side of the matter we were talking about the distractions, about perhaps the fact that the world is so noisy, which I'm sure we're going to circle back on that topic certainly. But it's this concept of, as the world is shifting towards more and more Instagram reels, this sort of 15-second basically dopamines. Yes, we've seen the world drifting this way, obviously, for all sorts of interesting reasons. Some that are societal, some that are definitely economical. But there's this sort of deeper meaning that comes with conversation like this. And I think the resurgence of what we've been seeing book purchase is going up. The fact that of consuming, I suppose, long form content is going up as the consumption of short form content is also going up. So I suppose the consumptions of all content, regardless of its formats, is going up in a way in which I think it really warms my heart, to be honest. I think one of the main skill that I always tell everybody, some people comes to me and say, Sam, how do you do so much, and how you're always up there? Curiosity, people. Stay curious. Stay a lifelong learner. Obviously, my life has been pretty short this far, but knock on wood, I'll continue for decades and decades upwards. Because curiosity, life is so plentiful. And when you're passionate about learning, boredoms can be rapidly transformed into very actionable and effective ways of impacting the world. Which I was just listening to this very interesting Chris Williamson Modern Wisdom podcast, and they were discussing again what you do with your boredom is sort of your edge, which is quite interesting. Schopenhauer was talking about this, right? The boredom is perhaps the contemplative state of the human being is one in which we typically very much underrate. We typically measure our actions by the way we are moving, by how many sales calls, by how many basically podcasts we've been on. But this contemplation of perhaps this sort of stillness is something I think is so interesting. To quote Lao Tzu, one of my favorite quotes is, "Nature is never in a rush, but everything gets done." Right? And it's
that, yeah.
Everything gets done. It doesn't need to rush anything. Everything gets done just in time. Talking about personal experiences, one thing that you discuss at great length, and that's sort of coming back to the founder-led growth also, is you lace a lot of personal experience with your work, and you're sort of this, which I really love, by the way. Those are the typical people that I prefer. Is really people that are very agile in blending in personal experiences, because lived experience cannot be bought. Obviously, those are quite unique, and it's a very powerful thread that really lends to authenticity and wisdom, and also relatability, which is hugely important. And it's sort of a kind of vulnerability that really breeds trust in clients and in team also. For you, I'll ask you a personal question. What's a defining personal experience that shapes how you consult brands today? Is there one that sort of comes to mind when you're thinking about a personal experience that really redefined how you proceed business wise?
Yeah, that's a good question. A personal experience. No, I don't know that I have an answer for that. There's the big initiations that I've had in my life. Was getting married and getting divorced in 5 years. My dad passed away when I was 26. Spending time working in a company where I had certain thresholds to meet in order to get a giant bonus, which I then met and then did not get the bonus. So those kind of initiations are interesting. I think one of the things was doing international business. I think that was one where I learned how other cultures are not as transactional as we are, and could spend more time sitting and in these rituals of, bringing the business gift, having a business dinner, having conversations with people that were long and meandering, to know them as humans. You sit with the Germans, and they're speaking German, and then they're speaking Dutch to their other friends, and then they're speaking English to me, and the agility of that, and the ability to see big picture culturally almost simultaneously, and the way the other cultures are more present, I think, in the human part of business. That might be the thing that has tempered me the most.
Which culture are you referring to? Is that one that in particular?
Well, definitely Asians. We did a lot of time in Shanghai and Taiwan, and especially Taiwan. I think those were the most interesting to me, because a lot of the people I worked with still had the family farm, and so they would come to town and work for the week. Then they would go back home and be farmers with their family and their parents, right? And so they were very grounded and purposeful and true to themselves.
Interesting. To me, it's interesting you mentioned this. International business also changed my life absolutely, completely. I fall in love with a lot of the Asian principle, ikigai. This concept of even another of their warriors really inspired me. There's this great quote, obviously, fall 7 times and get back up 8.
Right.
There's a lot of concrete concepts that I think are so interesting. And when you're thinking about the ethics of persuasions, one thing I always like to go with people that does international business is different cultures operate differently, and therefore there will be subtleties in the ways you conduct yourself, that the way you persuade, certainly, specifically with the Asians, typically very quite dogmatic people, typically quite also, like you said, they quite more in tune with nature, closer to it than we are in the West, without the shadow of a doubt. And therefore those will definitely, I suppose, at least in the subtleties, angle persuasion slightly differently. When you're thinking about marketing as persuasion at scales, and perhaps when done without ethics becomes manipulations, right? Which we
Yeah.
definitely do not want.
Right.
Your longevity in the field suggests, and I suppose prove, the fact that you've been able to navigate that quite effectively. From your perspective, how do you draw the line between ethical persuasions and effective, perhaps, persuasions and manipulative tactics in today's data-driven marketing space? Where is that line basically drawn out? And tell me more about that.
It's a great question because I've been on a study for emotional selling and emotionally, because I had um, basically I've eliminated emotional selling as an option for the work that I do for myself, for the agency.
Okay.
I feel like that in itself is a manipulation. I think it's a black line, and so that I don't pass. I think I read some books early on that showed that intellectual and emotional selling are about even, and I know there's a lot of current thought that that's not true, and that emotional selling, it outperforms intellectual selling, but that's fine. I don't ascribe to that. But I have done the review again. I'm in the middle of it right now to say, well, how do I bring more emotion into it, and what is that line? But I don't have an answer for you right now because I'm in the process of fighting it.
Well, when you have one, I'd definitely love to have it, and I'm sure you'll be able to tell me more by then. But just without the sheer data, I suppose, do you have an impulse, or I mean, even an intuitive, perhaps, response to where you draw that line that could be insightful for our audience?
Yeah, I think it is. It's where you're starting to lead people uh, down the rabbit hole of emotion, and you're triggering, right? We have to give people escape hatches. It's just, it, I don't know. I guess that's the best description I can give for you, Sam.
Okay. So the repetition of emotional triggers for you sometimes feels like there's more convincing than alignment, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah. And we know that, especially in North America, that we all have purchased way more stuff than we'll ever need or use in our lives. And so it's kind of like I know a guy who's a programmer for in the casino industry, and
Okay.
they change slot machines every 6 months. And because people get bored with the games, whatever the entertainment,
Yeah.
and then they know, down to the second, that how many how many coins somebody's going to put in, and they know they're only going to return 90% of the money to the people, and it's just this dopamine drip that they're encouraging us. To me, that's immoral. Like that's a very clear line for me. That's not any industry I want to participate in.
Yeah.
any more than the AI tool that's supposed to be your therapist. There's a new tool that says, "Oh, tell me what you did today. You did so good. Great job," and being your cheerleader. I think that's the same thing. To me, that's immoral, and that's not anything I want to participate in.
Interesting. I certainly agree on the casino points. I'm not knowledgeable enough on the second point as I don't know the technology enough. But it's a let me ask you. Let me actually give you a personal story because I think this would be a very interesting. I just went to the Casino of Montreal for a business gathering. And Emmanuel, I don't know if you like the casino or you like gambling or that world. I don't get it. I simply do not understand. There were people, mainly in their, I'd say 40s. They were younger than I would have expected, actually. And they are, it's not focused at that point. They are hypnotized by the slot machines and pushing the button, just looking without any glimpse in their eyes whatsoever.
Yep.
It was frightening. To me, it was frightening. And so it's a place that I never go. I don't gamble for also personal and religious reasons. But even with outside of that, I just see it as as perhaps feeding evil, feeding a doctrine in which perhaps gives you cheap pleasure, cheap dopamines, and embark you on this journey of trying to elude you to a goal that is not only unrealistic, which is to be profitable by gambling, but also extremely slippery slope. Because let's be honest, but again, most will lose quite a lot of money if they continue to do so on a consistent basis. So it's an industry that I have not only no interest, I condemn it altogether. So I would just want to make that very clear for the context of this conversation. Anything to add on this?
Well, it's interesting. It's like all marketplace drift, right? In Aboriginal cultures, gambling is set up to as entertainment and those things, but it's also set up to fine tune intuition, and so you would develop skills around it in order to be good at it, right?
Okay.
So that's why I don't throw it out whole cloth. I mean, I love to play poker. I love the psychology. I love the math. I didn't like the people I had to play poker with. So I stopped playing poker, right? So that was the not match. But yeah, the setup now with the slot machines and the dopamine and all that is, I agree. To me, it is immoral, and it's not anything I want to participate in.
And I want to make the distinction. I definitely in the industry and perhaps the way in which they monetize such games is what I condemn. The game itself, like playing poker, playing blackjack, if you do that for fun, obviously all power to you. There's nothing inherently wrong. It's a game like any other games. Though the way in which it has been corrupting perhaps our mind, I think is very disturbing. And I saw that firsthand, and I was I left the casino. And I had this epiphany of
right.
This is what I do not want in my life. Let's just put it this way. I learned what I didn't want is, and sometimes they're very wealthy people, very capable people. Nothing against themselves specifically, but that act, I suppose, was to the detriment of not only their character but their depth. You become shallow when you play the slot machine. You become insufferable, in my opinion. I was there with these people. I was like, what the hell are we doing? I do not get it. But anyhow, within that, let's talk about dopamine for little seconds. Again, we're sort of in this world now where everybody's fighting for your attention, right? Attention is the most valuable currency. All these great sayings that has been emerging over the past, I'd say post-pandemic, they've been accelerated for sure. And I don't know if you would agree with that. But I think it's been sort of getting another level since we were all at home, sort of in our house without socialization. That's a pretty good recipe to stick to a digital screen that gives you endless dopamine. But in you were talking about the reverence for stillness, nature, slowing down, your speed of voice so that people can listen to you very clearly. For example, in a world addicted to urgency, stillness to me became more than a simple buzzword. It became a way of life. It became a contemplative, intentional action that I do, and even a strategy perhaps to better my life. Do you have practices beyond your love for nature that helps you create stillness and clarity amid marketing chaos? Tell me, is there, which I'm sure there are other things in which you do for such thing to be accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of use it in a process, which is I meditate every day. That's how I start my day, and I spend that time first thing in the morning. So that's really when you look through and you listen to the great teachings of the world. The first activity is to spend time with yourself and connecting with Source, whatever you're going to call that, Source, God, in all of God's forms, and then that consistency of activity. Then I try to be outside, disconnected 1 day a week, and then 1 week a month, so that I can be fully separated and kind of cleansed from the modern challenges that we have with brain chemistry.
One thing that is remarkable is mentorship. I would never be where I am in my life, Emmanuel, without membership and mentorship. Pardon me, my pronunciation there was a little bit off. Mentorship, and it is fascinating. Mentorship to me has been a way to accelerate my business, accelerate my life, create incredible relationships, and obviously you naturally place yourself in a mentor seats a few times with all you've been accomplishing. And while your work seems to be, at least from the outside in, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to be mainly externally focused, even today, meaning that you run this business first and foremost, and mentorship is sort of something that you do as an extension of that. Perhaps your legacy, I think, might lie in the people that you've been able to train and influence behind the scene, right? Maybe some people don't even know about it, which happens a lot in marketing.
Sure.
I like to say that there is really only a few marketers, and everybody just duplicates basically what those real marketers are putting forward.
Yeah.
And you sort of have an approach of selected staff, which I suppose reflect your leadership ability and your philosophy, which is choose character and then basically coach skills, which I love, again, which I think is who is that originally? Do you know who's the first one that said something like that?
No, I don't know who that would be. That sounds like it could be a Deming thing. Not sure.
And that was what I was thinking also,
Yeah.
actually, which is or even Tom Peter had this great quote, right, which is true leader don't create followers, they create more leaders. So that's in the same vein. But for you specifically, talking about character over skill, what quality do you look for in young marketers, perhaps, that and how do you help them grow into industry leaders within your role of mentoring, I suppose?
I think it's the same qualities that we've been talking about, right? Which is the curiosity, and as young people, young men, young women, we have a brashness about us typically, and the lack of experience is overtaken by the enthusiasm and the energy to put into a project. So it's always impressive to see somebody who's new in the industry to ask questions and really dig into what worked in the past before this current period. So that's the first thing. The other thing that is really the missing element, I think, for young people, and I was guilty of this also, is the idea of perseverance. And like you were saying, you're going to fall down 7 times, make sure you get up 8. And that's why we always iterate as marketers, right? Because we're testing, and we got to keep going until either somebody kills the budget or we are successful.
Perseverance. Yes, 100%. Marketing is an endeavor full of determination. That's one thing for sure. Um, Even with the right data, the right team, and incredible basically vehicles, there's gonna be A/B testing, my friend. There's gonna be A/B
Absolutely.
testing copy, A/B testing creative, A/B testing audiences. It's just sort of the name of the game. Obviously, this has been helped significantly with technology that allows us nowadays to do that much more rapidly. I was discussing with Tom. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. The guy from Quest that just sold Quest Nutrition,
Mm.
Tom Blion, something around those lines. Pardon me, Tom, as I'm certainly butchering your last name. But he was talking about the fact that the game has changed nowadays with all the technology that you can have an idea over the weekend, build a prototype, get it to market, see basically how it goes
Yep.
for a few $100. It's really amazing. Again, how incredible that is without going through fundraising, without going to basically payroll overhead, literally in the comfort of your home. Such thing is possible, and therefore, I really believe that creativity will be a survival skill. It will be creativity is something in which will never lose its essence. Everybody will still look for creative people,
Yep.
and I think success in marketing has less to do with budget, since obviously it certainly have some impact into it, but more to do with creativity. Look at the catastrophe of the Jaguar new car campaign. Millions in marketing budgets, absolutely terrible, terrible. They sold 3 cars last year, the whole year, and
Right.
so absolutely terrible. Just completely destroyed Ben Heritage with one single ad with a pink new weird car and all the other affiliation that they made. So again, consistency is very important. Determination is very important. Curiosity is always important. Again, don't let it bite you though. Sometimes there's some ideas that looks better in your head than on paper, and that Jaguar ad was certainly one of them. So just keep that in mind. Certainly keep that in mind. But storytelling, marketing instincts all orbit under one thing, which is creative survival and reinventing, adapting, and imagining constantly. I think is the greatest gift of life. When you feel creatively stuck, Emmanuel, what do you do to tag back into the flow, and how do you help clients do the same? Do you have your magic formula in there, or it's more intuition?
No, absolutely. First thing is that shut the laptop and go outside and listen to the wind and just disconnect from it. So take that breath, take that 10, 15 minutes. So that's one way. The other way is I like to do my creative work the second thing in the morning, right after my meditation, because I'm hopefully still in some theta brainwaves, and I can access different parts of the brain and consciousness, and access that genius that's outside of me also. And so that, for instance, that's how I wrote the children's books that I've published. Was I would get into a really a deep meditative state, then I would stumble over to the laptop and I would crank out a story based on a concept that I had, whether it was stillness or being nice to your neighbors or whatever those topics were, and so that being able to tap in that way and be creative is a superpower.
Certainly is. In a world where a lot of people feel like AI will replace their job, what do you think are the main key quality to stay ahead in this world where technology sometimes seems to get over our head?
Well, I think the concept, this old book called The Go Giver, if you ever read that book,
It's obviously incredible.
yeah, yeah. So I think what's the whispers that I hear is let's stay focused on building relationships with people, and that those things, we're humans, we know, have got lots of concerns over the course of their lives. We're always going to need help from other people, and so reinvest, and invest again into your relationships with people. I love the track that you're on with the creativity, and learning to follow the interests that you have, so that you're interesting, number one.
Yes.
and then also that you have you're producing something, right? That's the other part of it. And I think this is the real immaturity of Western culture, is that there's this belief that until, I want to build this tool, I want to sell it for $1 billion, buy a Bugatti, and then go and retire on the beach. And I'm 28, and then the rest of my life I'm going to spend on the beach partying. And like, that is the most immature interpretation of being a human that has ever been created. We have to produce. We have to have an offer. And if that offer is busking on the street playing the guitar, that is a beautiful contribution, and it will be even more rare or more in need as the computers are doing more work. So find a creative outlet and produce something.
Yeah, there's always this great, and I think it's an outstanding topic of, we live in a society of consumptions, and the few in which decide to be producers, to be the creatives, always get ahead. And that's my message to anyone trying to leave their mark and make an impact. Start small. Start with something that you so enjoy that you wake up in the morning smiling. And whatever that is, like you said, if it's playing guitar in the middle of the street, guess what? Play the guitar in the middle of the street, my friend. That's what you should do. And you'll get to see that perhaps first of all, when you have a target, it's much easier to hit it. So definitely have a plan for your life. I suppose for me, how I describe Western culture, which is very different from when I travel overseas, is, like you said, is this not only this immaturity in our goals, but is this completely lack of understanding that responsibilities are actually a good thing. What we want, basically, and I see a lot of people talking about this, like you said, is grow a company, make a bunch of money, and then be careless. Have a fast car and have multiple girls and party on the beach with a bunch of drinks. It's really getting away from responsibilities instead of discussing eye to eye about the fact that, look, what makes us so great as civilizations is the fact that, again, we take care of ourselves, we take care of our neighbors, just like ourselves. That's obviously not mine. And from that concept, taking care of life, making life flourish. That's another thing that I talk very often with young folks. But you know what? Settling down. I know it doesn't sound sexy these days, but it might just work. It's been thousands of years since we were doing things this way. Maybe there's some merit to it. Maybe having a beautiful wife and having beautiful kids and making the world flourish through it, maybe it's a pretty decent plan. Just saying. So that could be something to keep on you guys' radar. Is, yes, be monetarily successful, but be successful. Period. Be healthy. Have hobbies. Have people you love and love yourself. Perhaps, and that's something that I think we sometimes lose depth for this immature concept of what success looks like. I would certainly agree with that. Are you following me? Do you think this suits your personal experience?
Yeah, the way that I learned it was that there's 13 permanent domains of human concern, right?
Okay.
There's body, play, sociability, family, work, education, career, money, situation, spirituality, in the world. So these are the things that, whether you agree or disagree, they exist in a human's experience. And the successful person is taking care of all 13 of those permanent domains of human concern, and when possible, taking care of more than one at the same time. So money and career is just one little tiny part of being a human being, that we have to take care of our family and our community and our world and our spirituality with the same veracity and the same excitement and the same passion that we do for our business and our money.
When can I find more details about the 13th film? Who's the author of that?
It's a Heideggerian philosopher. I can send you some information. Yeah.
Okay, send it to me for sure. We'll make it available for our audience also. This sounds incredible. It reminds me of Robin Sharma, basically cycles important basically phase of life, but it seems like it's a bit more extensive. And Sharma is great as condensing things that everybody can understand. Yeah. So that's probably what he did.
Sharma's cool.
Yeah, exactly. He's a great guy. He's definitely a great guy. Tell me about the future of marketing, Emanuel. Just that very small topic. But tell me where all of this is going. I mean, AI, obviously this concept of not only LLM being insufficient, it seems like, so we're changing it to even bigger and broader, basically, language models. Everything concerning, I suppose, eye tracking, conversion basically being increased by neural marketing, so on and so forth. Where is all of this leading? And take us through the noise, my friend, to cut to what's important.
Well, I think it's very obvious that in the next 2 years, we will have a one prompt marketing campaign, right? There will be some piece of software that will be developing a brand book and an ICP and all the content that you need for a campaign by referencing a web page. So the question becomes then how long it will take to absorb all of the secret sauce from Russell Brunson and Jay Abraham and Claude Hopkins, and your secret sauce and my secret sauce. So how long will it take for it to all be contained in one library and produce and track marketing? It will be in our careers. It will be in my career, which is going to be shorter than yours at this point. So I have no problem picturing that and understanding that's going to happen. So then what are we going to do as marketers? That's a great question.
Do you want to elaborate on such topic?
Yeah. So we'll have to, obviously, we will still be human in the loop. We'll have to be able to make assessments about how good the outputs are. But even that will be on a short timeline. The custom GPT that's built into this big single piece of software will learn quickly about what our preferences is and what we like to see for the client. So we'll be a reporting function, I think, in the next 5 years. That will be what the marketing department is.
Interesting. Well, carve your name on hearts, not tombstone. Shout out Shannon Alder. Mr. Emanuel Rose, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the Meaningful Podcast. Thank you so much for your directness, but also your humanity. And I think what you do is extremely important. But to really, I suppose, leads us to the end of this episode, please leave our audience with some last words of wisdom.
Yeah, I want to say every day, take some time to simplify your life and put it on your calendar, an hour a day, hopefully in the first part of your schedule, and be disconnected and think about what you want to do with your life and what's important for your whole life, not just the next project you have to complete.
Thank you for spending your time with us today on the Meaningful Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who could benefit from it. And always remember, your story matters. Make it meaningful. We hope to see you next time.